We meet again.
Yes. Yes, it's been a long time. It's recording, by the way.
Yeah, I think Jackie's owns the room. Where is everyone? They're usually on time. It's like 1 minute past.
Exactly. This is excellent.
Anxiety. Hey, Jackie.
Hello, how's it going?
I was
Good,
just,
Jackie.
where's everyone? It's been
We just finished up the monthly release kickoff, so
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Tim.
sorry.
Cool. I guess it's just the four of us.
Let me check. I think
Lori.
John and Lori both accepted. Alrighty.
Okay.
Um,
I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
Yeah,
We have a lot to cover today.
let's do it. So this is our 5th Think Big for release management, and Hyana has the first item. We did a huge UX proposal, so let's go ahead and let you take it.
Yes, awesome. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm also preparing this same presentation to the design team because I want to get feedback from a design point of view. So I'm gonna share my screen.
And Sean, welcome to our sessions.
Hi.
I'm glad that you're able to join this.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. I love this idea. Think big.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and there you go. Can you folks see my screen? All right, I'm not gonna go ahead and explain everything in detail because at this point I assume we know what we're talking about here. And yeah, so just a quickly touch base on why we're doing this, right? We want to make sure that we improve the maturity of these orchestrations and move it from minimal to viable by this year. So this team effort intends to propose the bigger solution. So I really designed, I think, 20 plus screens based on the data we collected from user interviews, the discussions we'll be having async and asynchronously. And pretty much it covers usability for releases pages, issues, the epic to make release page viable, and by consequence, it touches also making releases complete. So what I'm presenting to you is based, as I mentioned, on user insights, and I highlighted here 3 of the main user insights that I think are really valuable and really change how we are dealing with release today. So the first one, we are already working on this, is to be able to create and edit a release using the interface. The second one is to create releases through the Get Release page and improve that relationship between releases and tags. And the third big one is to improve the data that we are displaying on the release page, since we're dealing with 2 different personas, release manager and whoever is consuming release data. So for those who are new to this pretty much are the big effort. We moderated 3 interviews, but also Jackie and Lori conducted like, I don't know how many other interviews with so many different people and stakeholders about release orchestration and release management. And I documented 15 unique user insights. So those insights are challenges that users currently have with releases, feature requests, or answer to the questions that we have. So for example, do they want more of this functionality? Do they have challenges from a UI point of view that affect the workflow, and etc. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and I'll show you. Let me know if you can see this, because I'm really gonna try to zoom in into this screen. And this is the first time I'm doing this online, so bear with me. Hopefully this will work for everybody. Oops, there you go, technology. All right, let me reopen this, Jesus. Okay. So also to give you some context, I'm thinking of explaining this through user stories. So let's see, yes. Da, 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 da. This one. All right. I want to start from the beginning. Can you folks see my screen? If it's too small, please let me know because it looks fine to me. So the first user story and the first task here is to, we're already doing this, allow users to create a release through the UI. You can see here that I made also other improvements, as in updating the empty state. Here, right now you have a button that takes you to the documentation because this doesn't exist, creating release through the UI, as well as notification for releases. I'm not going to go into detail on this at this point. So the user sees a button on the UI, and by clicking on it, it's taken to create release form. So with this proposal, we have all the information from the tags on the release page. So this is relates to Nathan's proposal, as in we changed the URL, but in a way we display the same form. So here user would start by adding a tag name, same thing as they have now, create from and message. The message I reduced. Right now it's a text area, and we had a few complaints from users that it's too much and they just want to either bypass this section or have a simple input field. So this is new. And here it's all the data that the user can currently add it through the API, added to the release UI. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend I'm creating a release. Don't mind the transitions. This is just this application. So my suggestion here, I'm thinking big, is to allow users to look for existing tags. Right now you have to type in and don't have an autocomplete. So it will be cool if the user could see the existing tags here, also create new and manage tags. By clicking create new, well, they just create a new tag together with this release. Manage tags will take users to the tags page with the list of tags. And if I click here in 12.8, we'll add to my release. So my release will be based on 12.8. Create from master. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So this might be a super naive question, but in what scenario would a user select an existing tag? So I think of a tag almost like a version, right? And so is this like releasing another release under that same version? Or what's it? I'm just trying to understand the use case for that.
So right now what we can do, users can create a tag but not create a release through the tags page, right? So they could potentially just have the tag there hanging and...
Oh, so, okay, so this could be associating a release to an existing tag.
Exactly.
Okay, okay, perfect, got it. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for asking. So yeah, so I added the data related to my tag. Also, you can see here that because most of the items on this form are not required, I changed here the UI to make only the required ones required, clearly required. So I can add a title to my release. Right now we don't have this on the UI, but we have on the API, so I'm bringing in here. You add the release notes, and next step, it's a milestone. So this ideally would work the same way as we associate a milestone with an issue. So it's the same interaction. You select no milestone, select an existing milestone, create new. And I saw that Nathan asked this question. So yes, you would be able to select multiple because we also do that from the API, right, Nathan? Right now?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, you can associate a single release to multiple milestones.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure if that, if we can select multiple milestones in that little dropdown you have there, or if there's going to be multiple of those whole input fields.
No, this would work the same way as labels work for issues, right? So if you select multiple here, and then they all stay selected. I have a question here for myself on the side that I need to investigate. Would be sufficient for people to just interact with this drop down, or do they want to, as they add milestones, see them on the UI? So for example, as labels under this input field so that they can clearly see milestones attached. But this will be, I think, more sparkles on top of this. So for now, I think will be sufficient that you would interact with this drop down. So I select milestone is attached. If we have more, you see them here on the field. And then the new section, so completely new, it's also assets. I added a lot of helper text because I want to evaluate if people truly need this type of information on the interface. A couple of users commented that, yeah, I don't really know what I need to do to add a release. There's no links to the documentation, so I'm really bombarding them with helper text here. And the first type of asset we would be able to associate is links. So this would help us achieve the vision for runbooks. So the user could add URL and a link title. This field also not mandatory. And by clicking here, add another link, you add another link through UI. And this would render on the interface. I also have to check here, can we delete the first set of, like the first link? Do they need to, the ability to remove the first field? Anyways, that's just something I need to check with other designers as well. And last thing, release date. So you can select a date in the past and the future, current date. And here, just also another helper text. Release date will be that's in the future will be labeled as an upcoming release. So for the sake of this demo, I'm adding something in the future, and then the UI gets highlighted. And user is, oh my God, sorry folks, it's almost 7 p.m. I'm like, so the users know that this is an upcoming release. I saw that Nathan also left a comment as in, if by default, do you want to voice your comment, Nathan? It was something related to this section.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we leave it empty, does it default to today kind of in the background? Or is it one of those things that will default to today even in the UI? I'm not really sure what would be best. Or
yeah, I think it would be worth investigating this, or we could also label this as mandatory, right? A required field. You always have to select it in order to specify this. Yeah. So next.
I like the idea of it defaulting in the UI, because then you know what you're getting. You know, you can override it, of course.
Yeah, it might be a little more explicit.
Awesome. I can add this to this prototype and then we investigate it further. And okay, I can click create my new release, and I am sent to the detail view of my release, right? Nathan and Jackie, just to confirm, that's what he wants. So I can see that this is an upcoming release. I can see here in the assets, the link that I added, that I named Runbook 4.12.8, other assets that are added to the release. This part, just FYI, the body of the release is not updated yet. So it doesn't reflect, for example, the change log or the things that we've been investigating. So the rest of the flow stays the same, right? We just show on the interface. Any questions? Can I go?
Yeah, I have a question, Hyana. How do we determine the percentage of completeness?
How do we determine? It's by the number of issues that are closed.
Yeah, in this view, this is the issue summary. So when you associate a release to a milestone, all of the issues that are within that milestone are pulled into this view.
Okay. Yeah, that's clear.
Awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and edit this release just to show you how.
Sorry, just to add something. So that actually could then go down, right? Because if suddenly we add a whole lot of issues to that milestone and they're open, the percentage will actually go backwards, right? Possibly. Okay. Sorry, Hyana.
That's okay. That's what we're here for. Anyone else? Okay. So the release is created, and now there's something like, yeah, shit, I forgot something on my release notes. I want to add this, or I want to add a new milestone to it. I click the edit button, and then same form, but now I cannot edit the information related to the tag. So this is something new. Right now, what we do is that we simply don't show this on the interface, and it's really weird to users that, so why can I not see my tag information? So the form stays the same. And here I'm also adding the option for people, for users to delete a release. I didn't add this interaction, but ideally it would have the option on a modal asking, do you want to edit, do you want to delete this release? And do you also want to delete the tag associated with this release? Because yeah, right now when you delete the notes of a release, you delete everything, you remove it, the tag. So we don't want that to do that. Let's pretend I added something here, I save the change, I go back to the detail view and I see the information. Questions? Okay.
Will we be able to edit to move a release to a different tag? Is that an eventual feature?
We had users saying that, yeah, I added a release to the wrong tag and then I had to delete everything, create a new tag, and create a new release. So I see that as a use case. Jackie, I don't think we have anything, right, for this. Yeah.
The only reason I ask is because the API does allow you to move a release. You can update a release to a different tag. But on the other hand, my gut feeling tells me that wouldn't be a super common use case. So I think it makes sense regardless to keep it the way you have kind of as a first iteration and then add that ability later on if we need it.
Yeah, if we can validate that, Hayana, with customers after we get this prototype out there.
For sure.
In the wild.
Sean, do you want to voice something?
Yeah, I've got points here. Okay, so the first one is I like the just the tag metaphor. I think it's great with the milestones, and the way we're doing it in tags labels at the moment I think works perfectly. So, and then with all this text, there's a lot of instructional text on the other pages. Are we using anywhere in GitLab tours? Those little tours for the first, because that instructional text will be important to people who are doing this for the first or second time. But once they've done it 10 times, it'll just be kind of static, right? So
yeah,
just a thought, or maybe we could dismiss it or something.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
And then the third point I've got is and so evidence collection is only after evidence is later, right? Evidence is only, or evidence is collection is going to be done when we create the release.
Yes, right. You create a release and then we pack everything. We got some feedback from people saying that they want to be able to edit their evidence collection, the title and things related to it. But I didn't include this for this forum. Okay. Can we do that? Can we do this through the API at this point with evidence collection? What's the deal with it?
Because I thought that we would.
It's auto captured, right?
Yeah, it's auto. Well, I guess there's I thought there was a few question marks on some issues I recently commented on. So, so we create the evidence. At the moment, I think it's only one. There's only one evidence, but then we changed it, or we are changing it to many evidences for a release.
Yeah, there should be 2 evidences for a release. The one at time of release creation. And so like here, if you have an upcoming release, you'd have a evidence collection link. And then the second snapshot would be at the release at time frame. But we wouldn't, according to the most recent thing that you added, Sean, we wouldn't have like a historical release evidence, right?
Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, I guess that's yeah. I guess it's slightly unclear to me, but that's okay. So in this particular scenario, when we create it, we're going to get the evidence.
Right.
Okay. Because if we incorporate, issues, then the evidence, we have this issue with, and sorry, I don't want to sidetrack this, Hayana, maybe we can take this offline, but the evidence will immediately be out of date.
Which is okay, because it's just snapshots of time.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it can be right when you create your release, and then you're going to have a bunch of open issues related to that release. And then at the end, you're only going to have closed issues in your evidence, because that's when you've released your product.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. And
We'll
sorry,
talk-
I have no more questions now.
Okay.
No more
You're
questions.
good.
All right, cool. So yeah, another interesting thing is that with this view in particular, we want to validate what data users want to consume and how do you want to organize this. So here, for example, we also got feedback from people saying that, yeah, I need to know who created this release. I want to see the name of the user. Right now, we only display the avatar. So that's a super small change, displaying John Doe's name there, a link to his profile, so that whoever is looking at this release can see this information. And another thing is that as we throw more stuff on this UI, I want to also evaluate if we need to make a separation between, oh my God, I forgot again the name. The data, for example, evidence collection, assets, and the data that is relevant to release manager versus the data that is relevant to people that just want to see the release notes and download the assets. We've been discussing this as well. And I think that's it for this page. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go back to the releases overview so you folks can see how it would look like. And this is it for releases. I'll just quickly show you how the interaction will work for tags. This is the tags page. Two small changes here. So the first one, as you can see, is the release that we just created. 12.8 is shown here by this label. And the button shows edit, right? So I can click here and go edit my release. And this is the case where John asked before, I have a tag that doesn't have a release associated with it yet. I would then have the option to create a release for this tag. So I'm hovering the button with the rocket here. I cannot mock the interaction, but you would have a tooltip saying create release for this tag. I click the button, I'm taken to this very same form. So expanded with the options for the release. I create my release, I'm taken to the detail view of this new release. So this is a small change on how we're dealing with tags today. And also we want to validate, okay, are people happier with this interaction, with this separation between releases and tags? Because right now you edit both things same way, but the form is just very different. Any questions on this proposal or comments, Sean?
No, I like it. It looks good.
I think it's cool also. Sorry, Nathan.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Hayana, for explaining this. I was getting a little bit mixed up in my head just because I kind of equate a tag to a release, a one-to-one. So now this makes a lot of sense to me. If for some reason, if you're creating tags and those aren't automatically creating releases through your GitLab CI YAML file, then this is a way to add a release to a tag. Cool. Thank you so much for explaining.
Of course.
One question I had, I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh yeah, if you, so one of the mock-ups, and I might have been looking at things that you weren't intending to show in this, so you feel free to cut me off, but one of them had a toggle button that said create a public release. And then the other one had a collapse button. So to me, those kind of would serve the same purpose. I'm curious how those interact with each other.
Yeah.
And when the toggle button shows up.
Let me.
Oh, Nathan, I love your questions. And I love your questions too, Sean. You guys are just making me so excited. This is great.
Okay, this one, right, Nathan?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, cool. So that's awesome that you mentioned this one. Because I wanted to show you how I've been experimenting with the interface and also with the proposals that we have. So this is based on Nathan's proposal for adding a toggle to the tags form. And then once you toggle it on and off, you would see the data for the release. So imagine this, if I click this off now, then this whole section here of releases would just disappear from my interface. And then I was experimenting, actually looking at how with Bill, we deal with this at GitLab at this point, and I decided to go ahead with a proposal for the expand and collapse for two reasons. The first one, because it aligns more with how we are hiding and showing data. So if you go to project settings, for example, you expand and collapse. And I also wanted to, let me show, oh my God, now I need to figure out which one I need to show you. But anyways, I want to be more in context. So in a way that I can see information about what the release is. So if I show you this one. Yeah, so let's assume that this is the text. This is wrong here in the title, but this is the text page. I can already see more in context information about what the release is and go to the docs, and I'm curious, I can expand here and see the data rather than interacting with the toggle itself. That, yeah, it's more like requires more effort for users to discover that. But I also want to validate this, Nathan. I went ahead with this proposal fully with expand and collapse, but I want to put this the toggle as well in front of users.
Yeah, my only concern with the toggle is that that feels more like just a expand or collapse in the UI. Like where we use that elsewhere is in settings pages where we just don't want to see it. But in this case, we're really telling whether or not we want to create that release and associate it as part of the flow. And so my concern was that people might expand it, fill out some of the release, and then collapse it. And then I guess that would not create a release if it's collapsed. I don't know exactly what would happen in that case. So yeah, I guess that's the distinction, is whether or not it's just collapsing something in UI or whether it's actually changing the workflow.
Yeah, so if we didn't have, if they expanded it and they didn't fill out any of the release stuff, I would imagine that it wouldn't create a release.
Exactly.
Right.
Because the required fields, so the release notes and I don't know, release date, for example. Yeah,
so with it toggled off, is there really no action they could take from this page besides like maybe creating a new tag?
Exactly. So
is that fair? Okay.
The toggle it's off, you don't really see any of this information related to releases. It's kind of a blank section.
Gotcha.
But that's a good thing. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was thinking if you expanded that release section and then you filled out one of the required fields, but not the other one, then do we say, yeah, go ahead and click that expand. I was curious. I guess we only have one required field, which is the notes. So you're thinking that if you expand it and then add notes, that's what tells it to create a release?
Yeah, the same way we do now with the current tags form. It's just the release notes that they're optional, but in a way, if you fill that in, yeah. I think ideally we should be able to allow users to, that's how I think, maybe remove a release from a tag. Does that make sense? Like we were talking about, if you can associate, change the tag that you just associated by mistake, for example, to a release, would you be able to move the release notes or the release information to a new tag? I'm not sure if that's a use case.
I mean, if you can delete the release, then yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, because we had there was this one participant of the user interviews that say that, yeah, it's really awful that I have to manually copy paste all the information when I created, if I created a release in the wrong tag by mistake, I have to go ahead and copy paste everything to a new form. So
it is a bit of an edge case because, I mean, you would think generally with releases, you're going to be super careful, and, it's a big deal, right? You're releasing a new version of the software, and but yeah, I take his point.
Yeah. But I think in your input is really, it's really cool, Nathan, to validate how this would look like and how people would interact with the toggle versus the expand and the impact that this would have in creating a release if you just decide you're unaware and then you add release notes or whatever to it, to your
Yeah.
tag.
I think
Another idea I had, this isn't really, it's just an idea. The create release button, I thought we could also dynamically change it, the text, to show what we're actually creating. So if we're going through the flow and we're creating a new tag and a release, we could say create tag and release. Or if we're just adding a release to an existing tag, we could say create release, or just say create tag if we're only creating a tag. That might be some indication too, like as to what we're creating. So even if you have expanded that release section, but you haven't added any notes, they would just say create tag because you're not actually creating a release.
Yeah, I like that. I think just the side effect of this whole thing is having this form is it actually shows you, because at the moment I would, the feeling in GitLab is that in the GitLab product is that releases are very underbuilt, or, but in fact, just by showing this form, it's actually quite big. I mean, we have all this stuff that we can associate and connect, and the form really displays it to users.
Yeah.
Yep.
And another thing, like if you have the toggle, let's see, new release. Let's say I have a toggle and then I added my release information, and then for some reason I toggle this off. The application should bring all the data back, right, Nathan? Is that possible from the front end?
Yep, I think that should be doable.
Okay. And maybe then, I don't know, would be useful to have an option to clear the form maybe in the future. Like, oh yeah, I don't really want to create a release, because even if you toggle off, but the form is still saved.
Well, wouldn't that be cancel?
But what if I still want to create the tag? I mean, yeah, the tag form is very small. I can just go back and forth. But yeah.
Or you can just create
I would
it
say
on the
probably
tags
just,
page.
What's that?
I mean, if you just want to, sorry, Nathan, go ahead.
oh, I was saying you can just refresh the page too. That would also clear everything.
Or
But you
if
lose a tag, obviously.
If you just want the tag, I mean, you just create it on the tags page, right?
Yeah.
But those are nice edge cases, I think, or once we show this to people and also start.
Yeah. Those will be cool to poke onto, because like right now I'm like, yeah, I would just say cancel your shit, man, and recreate your tag.
You're forcing me to cancel this. Go back, click.
Do 5 clicks to clear your form, okay?
And yeah, this form is going to become even more complex, because another thing that Sean and I were discussing in the previous call, that right now you can link assets, but if I want to attach or just add a package, whatever here, yeah. Right now, the only way you can do things is by drag and dropping to the release notes, but then this adds it in the description in the release notes. And what if users want to have this in the assets section of their release, right?
Right, like, so we have this whole epic for how to support assets and releases, and that includes binary files and images, and hopefully the GitLab releaser tool will help manage how we upload those. But in the UI, kind of just like GitHub, where you have that option to add an asset as an uploaded file, we will need to support that in the UI eventually.
Yeah, and also, like, do we want to support asset types? Do we want to show this in the interface, etc.? But again, yeah, I see this form. If you want to fully manage a release through the UI, this can become quite complex. And I think in the future it will be interesting from a UX point of view to experiment with how the users will interact with this form. So
yeah,
not showing like those boring fields, but have an option to, I don't know, maybe progressive disclosure, maybe a way to that you can drag and drop items here, and then later on you select the type or add a link, whatever. But there's a lot of things that we can do here. So this is the proposal for the current items that are supported on the API, displayed on the user interface. And yeah, this is not like one issue. This is a lot of user stories.
This is like 3 different epics, yeah.
Just so you know.
So Jack, you don't want this done by 12.9?
Actually, that's why we're having this meeting.
So this is not it. Yeah, so I started like breaking this down into high level user stories because what I want to do is to also look at, where is it? These epics that we have here. And then Jackie wants to, we start getting feedback from people on this prototypes. We can start filling in the data and seeing how to prioritize this. But yeah.
So we will already be building some of this stuff like in this milestone and next milestone. So the goal will be that we're really not only, while I have interviews scheduled with users now and into the future, but like, you know, at the end of 12.9, my hope would be to start, you know, tracking those actions that people are taking in the front end and understanding like with that data too, just usage data. So we'll need to think about
Yeah. And
that from your prototype view too.
yeah, and for the new things, I added here as a suggestion for the solution validation that we reach out to the release managers, like internal release managers. So
yeah,
by accident, I found this page today that has everyone at GitLab that is going to be responsible for release in the future, or that have been in the past. So we can reach out to these people specifically and try out the prototypes with them. But also with the external customers. I think this would be very interesting to us to get these two different perspectives.
I agree with looking like even now just scheduling time with like John Scarbuck, because he was resistant to implementing the release functionality for GitLab and GitLab.com, mainly because he's waiting for like the auto change log. Otherwise that will be like a really manual process for them. And they don't want to have to break what they're currently doing for all that.
Awesome.
So it'll be cool to see what they think after we build out more functionality.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can already schedule the next steps maybe for the solution validation for the things that don't exist yet.
Yes.
But I really try to not introduce a lot of changes. Let me see if I can preview again. A lot of changes to the interface here. So we should be able to reuse components and UI elements that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, I don't even know in which page I am right now.
One thing to be mindful of is as we get more time boxes from the plan stage, how we want to associate releases to more time boxes. So the plan stage is going to reframe milestones into this thing called the time box, which will be like a sprint, a milestone, could be custom iterations for users, I think is on their roadmap. So whatever we build there, we kind of have to think about what does that look like as other stages begin to expand.
Yeah, maybe I can already bring some of these prototypes also to the discussion with them to see how it is. Yeah, so I think the only change on components, so this is more for Nathan, would be that people should be able to select multiple milestones here on this dropdown, but also the tags. Yeah, this doesn't exist right now on the release page, but and I don't think we have. I mean, we have this behavior, but I don't think we have anything related to this dropping down. Oh my God.
Like searching tags and having it be a dynamic list.
Jackie.
Yeah, we're mind melding right now. So from some actionable next steps, I have a meeting this week scheduled with all of you all mostly to talk about the runbooks functionality within this prototype so that we can understand what issues we need to create out of this prototype from that segment, given that that's our top priority for 12.9. And then 12.10 is going to be expanding a lot of the edit capabilities within the release page. So I would like to really get a grok on what back-end work needs to get done to support that front end. And if there's things that we can do to prioritize those within the ready for development columns adequately. And it'll be my intent that like we freeze some of the pages work that's going to like swarm on the edit capabilities in the release page, and we get everybody like on board to push this forward. Because if we can get release orchestration mostly complete by the middle of this year, that will really push us forward on the Forrester Wave, and also help support a lot of our ultimate customers. As our ultimate customers and the calls that I have with them, they're like, this is kind of cool, but it's not really where I need it to be for me to stop using something like GitHub releases. And it's not where I need it to be in order to support my inner sourcing needs. So a lot of customers that I have, probably about 10 or so that I've spoken to, are managing inner sourcing shops. So they are using GitLab for their developers to pull down images and copy those environments, and then like create and deploy code from their machines, either in an air gap environment or just as a way of sharing information. And that's like, if we can nail that use case, like we will make probably 50% of our ultimate current customers like really sticky, that will buy into our product. So I'm hoping that we can start kind of breaking down this prototype into really small bits for us to just start pumping out there to our customers.
And just following on from what you just said, Jackie, I mean, if that's the case, I didn't realize that. If that's the case, then I mean, in a way, this is a low-hanging fruit. Like, it seems complex, but in fact, if it's going to give that much value to our customers, there's not that much to it. And if we kind of, as you're saying, swarm, we can really kind of nail it pretty quick. It's not like unknowns. It's really just software development, what we're doing here. Yeah.
And it will be one of those things where we'll start to see like our Stage monthly active users just exponentially increase, because this is just such small behaviors that people are expecting out of our application, but they're going to really delight them because they're able to just manage their things end to end, from their CI all the way to their deployment. And Perfect. You can't really do that uninterrupted today. So this is going to be really cool for us. And Hyana, your work has been just incredible. So thank you.
I'm excited to be working on UI. I don't really spend a lot of time working on interface. I think the folks know that. We usually work with the acceptance criteria or the smallest changes in the UI, but it's nice to have the discussions and see, okay, this is everything that we've been discussing, and that's how it translates in the product. I'm happy that I had the chance to do that as well. Well, yeah,
and I'll iterate here. Like, the 3-year vision for release management is to completely enable somebody's ability to orchestrate releases in the front end, which is one of the very few stages in GitLab where we're prioritizing that. Because in fact, our offering is being positioned to salespeople as one of the only places where your technical and non-technical teams can work seamlessly in GitLab. And that kind of like power that we'll be able to add to that end-to-end platform is the reason why we're working upstream with plan, and we're working with compliance, and we're thinking about including test results and release evidence, is because we're trying to create this non-technical, technical nexus point for our users. And it's going to be a really cool opportunity for not only our customers who are looking to get off tools that they're managing releases with, but for our internal teams too that are trying to use GitLab to release their product. It's going to be really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This was really cool. So thank you all for the great questions. I'm going to go ahead and rewatch this. Make sure that I have all your insights captured, and make the necessary updates on the UI. And then Jackie, we can plan for some user interviews to see how people react to this proposal.
Yeah, and we might want to, I'm not sure, Nathan, if we need to update the create a release in the web interface with the new prototype. I'm not sure if that button looks any different, or the landing page.
I think it's the same. Okay. There might be a line underneath it or something, but I can chat with Hyana about that.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect.
I think it's for minor changes. We can also always rely to the description of the issue if we're not introducing any new components.
I think so too.
It will be the same.
Okay, perfect. Well, I know that I think we're at time. Thank you, Sean, for joining so late over there. I'm sorry that this meeting is scheduled inconveniently, but thank you for making it.
No problem.
All right.
All right.
Um,
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Bye.